Now joined by Vinny Rottino, scouting director for Prep Baseball Wisconsin. Vinny, man, I know a busy time for you. Appreciate the time and stopping by.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about this. Has been a great week. Team Wisconsin, both JFGs and future gamers and senior future gamers were just absolutely awesome all week long, finishing up here on Saturday.
I know you're excited to talk about this arm that you guys got going today. Colton Semmelman out of Brookfield Central High School, 6'1", 176-pounder, number one ranked lefty in Wisconsin, 4th overall. 24th at the position nationally. We got him right around 88.6 on the profile. Already see he's getting closer to that 90 number. What was your expectation for him coming into the event?
Yeah, so, I mean, we were just really excited to see what he was able to do. You see the delivery, see how much he repeats that, so loose. You love the fact, what I personally love the fact about Colton Semmelman, he's got a baby face. I mean, this kid is going to continue to develop physically. I mean, he's got that quick, loose arm. He's got a ton of touch and feel, multiple pitches for strikes. It is just a starter's profile right here from the left side. These guys don't grow on trees. Yeah.
You guys were 9-1 winners over Missouri yesterday, a 3-2 win over Illinois on Thursday. Some big performances for you guys, especially yesterday as that one gets into play and going to bounce into right field for a base hit. Matthew O'Grady, 3 RBI yesterday. Sam Abramhausen doubles home 2, and Braden Olivo we had here for the spring break experience for St. Thomas More. Yep. He and Caleb Lingdon both had RBI doubles. Then on the mound, Calvin Moreau, 3 strikeouts. Tell me about some of the individual performances and what you've liked so far.
Yeah, so really up and down the lineup, these guys continue to show off what they're able to do. They just have a ton of feel for the game. That's what I love most about these Wisconsin kids. Even though it's a cold weather state, they just continue to show how much feel for the game that they do have, the instincts that they have, even though, again, they're not able to play games year-round just because of the weather, but just they're able to get out all over the country and showcase what they're able to do. Cal Moreau is one of the top-ranked players in the state. Obviously, potentially going to be ranked number 1 in the state. He's a two-way guy. He was outstanding on the mound yesterday in the 2 innings of work that he had, up to 90. And then he can hit. This kid can hit and play shortstop. So it's a rare combination of that two-way guy that can play up the middle, defense, hit, and pitch on the mound. So it's a really impressive look. I mean, I could go on about a lot of these guys, and I'm sure that we'll get into it. But he was for sure. He's been for sure one of the bright spots. And again, there's been a lot of bright spots so far on this team, Wisconsin.
So mentioned Braden Olivo. Of course, we had, as I mentioned, him and his St. Thomas More team here this spring. Brother Kyle, Iowa signee, future game alum. Tell me a little bit about locking into a family like that and finding, so many branches there of guys that can get this game done in a really high level.
Yeah, so Joe Olivo, their dad, obviously has done a phenomenal job of raising these kids. There's 4 boys. I believe it's 4 boys, and then the youngest is a girl. So poor girl is going to have quite a bit of protection for herself with those sons. But yeah, so it's Kyle, it's Braden, and then a couple other on their way as well. And so it's a baseball family. Joe Olivo runs Prospect Training Academy, PTA. It's one of the top programs, and there's a bunch of programs in Wisconsin, including Racine Hitters, GRB, ISA, and then a few more around the state. So Joe Olivo's the dad. He's the guy that runs that program in PTA. But yeah, they're just a baseball family. And the thing that stands out most about the Olivos, and then again, most of these Team Wisconsin kids, is how much they love to play the game. You're not going to get to your ceiling. You're not going to develop, especially being from a cold weather state, and grinding it out in the winter, in the cages, in the indoor facilities, unless you just absolutely love the game of baseball, Corey. So these guys do. The Olivos are a great example of that.
Jack Brenner, bat speed 81.2, exit velos getting right around the triple-digit marks. I ask you about that bat speed because as somebody obviously with your work with Valley Sports Wisconsin and the Brewers, the metric of bat speed, as that one's going to sail back to the backstop, has become integrated into StatCast. So I think it gives these players a different kind of an understanding. When they can kind of put themselves up numerically against a major league player. Obviously, there's a very big difference by a guy who gets 600 ABs, somebody who's doing it in a showcase. But how are you and your team kind of viewing that? And then as somebody who's seeing it at the major league level, how are you kind of putting all this into your picture of a player?
Well, I think the takeaway from that is that as you're a high school player and as you're trying to understand, like, where do I stand in the game of baseball? Where do I measure up and how do I measure up? And then you see that your bat speeds are comparable to some of major league players. Obviously, they're using aluminum bats, but and the big leaguers are using wood. So you're seeing, though, that, hey, look, my bat speed is pretty close, or my bat speed is right on par with some of these major league guys. So I just need to continue to get games played underneath my belt. The tools are there. And so I think that that's what you do look at as a scouting director, as a guy that is evaluating talent, as you see Colton just absolutely paint the corner right there with a fastball at 88 miles per hour. So I think that is the big takeaway, that you understand. You look for the tools, you look for the loud tools, but then you also understand, like, these guys definitely have tools to play at the highest level. And you see where college baseball is at right now.
Yep.
It is very, very close to the major league level. And so you're trying to get these guys to understand, like, hey, look, I can play at that level. But again, it is just understanding it's the tools, but then it's also the ability to just kind of tap into those tools as well with the skills.
See the strikeout there for Colton Semmelman to get the first out, and this is on the outside corner there. Certainly a bit of a Wisconsin institution, obviously playing for the Brewers, Wisconsin Racine native yourself. Tell me about that kind of mentality. There's a certain, I think anytime we talk about the northern states, those cold weather players, as you mentioned, I think they kind of come down here with a different kind of mileage on them when we get to this point of the season, and you're somebody who obviously understands that better than most.
Yeah, so I mean, playing in Wisconsin and from Wisconsin, you do have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, right? I mean, because again, you're facing some of these teams and some of these states and players that are from the warm weather states that are able to play year round, that are able to work and do their work outside even in the winter months, and then you come down here and you try and prove, like, hey, we can compete with you guys, and they certainly do. And so you're getting later into the summer, and I think at this point, these kids play so much baseball too, from the age of 9 years old at this point, that they do play and have so many games underneath their belt that you're getting into the late Julys and August, that these guys are still fresh. They're not burnt out from the game. And again, it does come down to the fact that they just love the game. That's what I try and continue to preach to these guys. It's like, look, you guys are going to continue to develop those skills, but you have to love the game, and you do see that from this Wisconsin group for sure.
Contact into the outfield. They're going to catch, throw into home in time. No one's going to be testing that arm. Still scoreless in Wisconsin and Kansas, and meanwhile we got Texas and Georgia getting underway. Game at the top there was running a little bit late, so we're a little delayed on Massachusetts and New York as we continue with our Prep Baseball Future Games watch party, joined by Prep Baseball Wisconsin's Vinny Rottino. You guys had Snoop Dogg in the
we got to get Snoop down here, Corey. We do. We got to get him down here. I bet he'd come if we asked. No, it was cool to meet Snoop in the Brewers booth in the broadcast. I snapped a selfie of him as a run scores right here, Corey.
It's going to be 1-0 now. Kansas leading Wisconsin in the top of the first inning.
You do see how much that breaking ball does have on Colton Semmelman. I mean, again, it's a guy that just has a ton of feel, not only for the baseball, not only for the ability to get the ball to spots, but the ability to spin and break off some of those nasty breaking balls that he does have. The ceiling is so high for this kid. He did a great job over at GRB Sticks, is the program that he is with in Wisconsin, in developing Colton Semmelman. He really popped as of late. So this is a kid that I'm really excited about, really excited to see where he could go. I mean, potentially, we'll see. A couple years from now, we could be hearing his name called on draft day. You
guys have multiple kids who had junior Future Games experience that came back down here. A little bit of pride watching those kind of kids progress to get to the point where you're like, yep, you're coming back down and you're doing it for the big show.
No, it really is. And that's what I love so much about the junior Future Games, is it gives those kids a little bit of a taste of what's to come, a little bit of a carrot to work towards in being invited down to the junior Future Games. And then again, they are a little bit more firmly on the radar of our staff going forward, just because they did play in front of us at the JFGs. And so I love the JFGs. Those kids are so hungry. They're so competitive. And so, yeah, you have a bunch of guys on this Wisconsin team that were in that group. So it's every single year these guys are trying to get, they get the little taste of the JFGs, and then they're trying to work towards the Future Games, which obviously is the big event for prep baseball.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people will look at that junior Future Games invite and just say to themselves, okay, I'm eventually going to get back there. I'm going to be at the Future Games. I think it's interesting to watch guys, maybe they don't get the 23 invite. They come back in 24 and realize there's nothing guaranteed in this, and it's all about how you develop and how you're able to kind of, move along as a player. And I think that to me is an interesting step on how the guy kind of responds to being that junior Future Gamer. What fuel does he use that to get here again?
It's a great point, Corey, because, nothing is guaranteed in this game. And if you don't get invited back to the future games, and then using that as fuel to say, hey, I'm going to prove these guys wrong, and I'm going to continue to develop, and I'm going to get committed to whatever school and goal there is to get committed to, and maybe get back to the senior future games, or even just continue just to work your butt off. So I love how this system is set up with prep baseball and how we rank players. And I continue to tell players, hey, look, if you're not where you want to be in the rankings, if you're even left off the rankings, use that as fuel. And I do see a bunch of players doing that. I wasn't on any list coming out of high school, none. So and I went to a Division III school, ended up playing 14 years professionally, parts of 5 seasons in the big league. So it's like, use that as fuel, continue to develop, and get towards where you can your ceiling. And I just love preaching that to players, and I see them respond to that. And so, yeah, if you're not where you want to be, especially here at the future games, continue to work and try and get better.
We got a wasp buzzing around in here. I would assume that's something you guys never, maybe you guys get out to Oakland, maybe maybe you see something out there, but I don't think you're dealing with that too much in Milwaukee.
Not too much, especially in the winter months, as you see Colton just dial it up right there at 86.
So you mentioned your own path, obviously, Brewers, Marlins, Mets, and Indians, ultimately the MLB playing career. But for a guy that you mentioned not getting on lists during your developmental stages as a player, to have the senior future games now, I'm sure that's something you kind of can truly understand where these guys are at. Maybe you're overlooked. Maybe you were a late bloomer in terms of the game. How did you kind of piecing that roster together for the guys that got invites for you? How did you approach that?
Yeah, so we took a look at some of the guys that were uncommitted and some of the guys that probably shouldn't be uncommitted, right? So, so we take a look at the names and see if they would fit. Rob Allison did a great job with the senior future games for the Upper Midwest and piecing that together, that roster together. And we added some guys there, and they had a really good showing. So you're talking about a Dean Stodacre, you're talking about a Josh Zeller, and you're talking about a bunch of the arms, Auden Pankinen and Jack Roventini. They both showed out exceptionally well. I'm missing a couple guys, and missing one of the righties that was just awesome today as well. So they just did a phenomenal job of just, again, getting those guys an opportunity to get looks, and some of these guys are going to get commitments out of that. I love the senior future games and where that process is at for those players and also for prep baseball, because, again, it's the opportunity to play with those bright lights on, and I love that about prep baseball. Is it puts those bright lights on the players that deserve it, and it puts those bright lights on players that is what you need to learn how to play in front of. When the bright lights are on, when those coaches are watching you, when those scouts are watching you, and I missed, of course, Jack Lutz. He's one of the top players in the 2025 class. I mentioned Stodacre, Zeller. Pankinen was absolutely phenomenal today. And Dylan Campeau was the other arm that I failed to mention, who was really, really good. Cam St. John as well. He was up to 95 yesterday on the bump. He was up to 95. He's got a great arm. He's a two-way guy. He's got a hammer slider, too. So those are the guys that we brought, and I think there's going to be some really positive things that are going to come out of this because they attended and performed well at the senior future.
Yeah, I was talking to some Division I coaches today, and they said, I said, did you guys get down and get to see the seniors at all? And they said, it's kind of weird for us because in our position, we kind of already know who's coming within our 25. So we've seen a lot of, lower level coaches down there, some community junior college coaches. I think there's opportunities at the next level. And I think that's maybe the biggest message and mission here is providing those guys with that chance.
Yeah, and again, those kids are as hungry as anybody. As we see Cal Moreau, again, one of the top-ranked players in the state of Wisconsin for 2026, and he's just tooled up out of his mind, a two-way guy.
Yeah, 6'6", 160.
Yeah, I mean, he hit a 94-mile-per-hour exit velo triple yesterday, first pitch of an at-bat against a pretty good fastball yesterday. So he's going to have a really bright future. But so it provides fuel for those guys, and it also gives them an opportunity to understand, like, what is a good fit for me? Is it that good, mid-major? Is it that developing program that I'm going to go ahead and get a chance to step in and perhaps and potentially compete for a lot of playing time right away? And I continue to harp that on players, is that try to find that. I mean, of course you have to go out, you have to earn it, you have to take it. But I continue to harp on that with players just because it is so valuable to actually play baseball. does you no good to go to a program, right, that is a little bit over your skis, and all of a sudden you get 40 at-bats for 4 years at a Power 5 or something like that.
And I think, too, with the transfer portal, it's like getting yourself in the door, proving you can play the game at a high level, and who knows where it ends up taking you.
No, that's a great point. Again, it's the guys that are, a little bit of a late bloomer physically, but then also, again, the more at-bats you get, maybe there's something that clicks right away with your timing, or it takes you a little while to figure something out with your timing, or if it's that pitcher that gets with a pitching coach at a certain program that teaches you that nasty slider or something like that, a little bit of a tweak to your delivery. So finding that right fit, getting into a program, and then, again, you just never know, right? I mean, you never know. You could be at a small mid-major, and then you go ahead and really perform, and you could end up getting drafted.